ElkBros 2019 in camp, in the house. You're not going to want to miss this show. It's been epic. Much more from our ElkBros mailbox right here at Elk Camp 2019. So, my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gilliam. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Welcome back to the show. For those of you out there that have been listening to us, glad to have you back. For those blue-collar hunters that have been grinding it out in elk camp and out in the elk woods with us, glad to have you. I'm the host of the show, Gilbert Ornelas. To the right of me, I have our elk hunting coaches in the house, in camp, right here, Joe Gillia and Leroy Chavez. To the left, we've got the Venezuelan Mafia, Manuel Gratron, Luis Gonzalez, and Brendan Houlihan.
There you go.
So, stories now. You heard my story on mine, so you know that Chav and Gilbert, we actually spent that morning of that was the 4th.
Right.
We were in Raton, and Chav asked the doctor, what'd you ask him about? If you could go back to the
I asked him. Well, I told him about that we were out here hunting. And he gave, after giving me the shot and all that, he said, well, get back up there.
My kind of doctor.
And I said, oh, hallelujah.
Wow. So I Kathy, Chav's wife, and my wife, Loretta, have been texting the whole time, trying to find out what's going on with Chav and asking how he is. And I said, well, we're going back up in the mountains. They're like, really? I said, yeah, doctor's orders. I didn't get a great response from that one. Yeah. So we get back, and when we get back, I mean, you guys are in camp, and you talk about the morning, and it's, gosh, I forget, it's about 4 o'clock by the time we get up in here, and the first thing I looked at Manano and Luis and said, because we came back, they're all sleeping.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all sleeping, right?
They're wore out from their track.
Yeah, we tracked the bears.
Yeah,
650 yards at least.
You guys tracked the bear all that time, and
at least
had a couple
4 hours,
elk encounters.
Yeah, had some elk encounters.
I had a doe within 12 yards, broadside, and I had just left my.
A cow elk.
A cow elk.
I did try to tell you about that bow.
You did twice. And but anyway,
no. Anyway.
But that's a good lesson learned, right?
So
I spent the whole time we're tracking. I have my backpack on and my bow in my hand the entire time. And as we all know, it's always Manano's fault. Manano did say, why don't we? Because we kind of lost blood trail a little bit. And no, wisely, he actually said, hey, why don't we just all calm down and just have a little bit of a break, and then you'll just continue to track. And I said, well, fair enough, So I took my equipment off and put the bow down. And as I'm sitting there talking with him, I was like, man, I don't get this. Obviously talking about thinking you're hitting an animal in the pump station, and then you watch him just run that far. It's like, well, then you start second guessing everything, angles, lighting conditions, and all of that. So as we're talking through this, right, I look and I see, oh, there is the blood, right? So I kind of get up and start kind of going that direction, and then he, Brendan is behind me, kind of leaving little pieces of toilet paper marking the blood trail because we didn't have
line. I mean, it really does.
Yeah, so and we get going, and we get a little far from where Manano was, and he's like, man, we should go back and get her equipment.
Well, here and this
words of wisdom.
One thing I want to point out is I did say this twice, and which she said. But my thought was not, hey, we might run into an elk.
It's a bear.
We're tracking a bear. That's my thought. Like,
amen.
It's like hat blood.
And to his point, and I agree 100%. But I mean, this has been over 12 hours since the bear has been shot, so I'm not too worried about the bear you know, being.
Brandon was.
But he was. So, you know,
I would have been too.
you get into a momentum when you're following blood
No,
trails.
it's
Yeah.
true.
And then I was like, man, yeah, we'll just mark this last one, and then we'll just go back and get it. I'm saying that he stays back marking the last one I saw, and I'm probably 20 yards in front of
Yeah,
you.
about 20 yards.
20 yards in front of Brandon, and I start hearing something like, you know, trees breaking, rocks rolling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I hope that's not the bear, you know? That kicks in,
I'm
right?
naked now,
So-
don't you?
So much about them 12 hours, right?
Exactly. I'm
stay-
putting,
The healing.
I'm putting this toilet paper down. I hear those rocks crumble, and my eyes
I
get real
stay
big.
still.
And I'm
He
like,
hasn't noticed it
he's
yet.
like, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. So when he starts looking, that I look at him, he hadn't noticed, and all of a sudden he hears and he looks, and I'm like, look that direction. And so he looks in that direction. I'm seeing, at this point now I saw them, and I saw at least 2 cows, right? And they're just coming straight towards where I'm at, and they just crossed right in front of me. And one of them just stood broadside 12 yards from me, just stared at me and looked at me. And we were in a stare-off contest at this point.
So lesson learned was?
Don't ever let Brendan.
No, so listen to Brendan is the rule.
Listen to Brandon.
No, lesson learned is like, look, man, I've had my bow with me out in the woods every minute of this trip. And the one time I left it behind, you know, that's when I had a shot opportunity.
An encounter,
That
Yeah,
close, an
yeah. Oh
encounter
yeah,
that
you
close.
want to see an animal and decide to either go to the bathroom in the woods or
Yeah.
Oh,
leave
yeah.
your boat out
Yeah,
someplace,
so,
right?
I mean, always, especially when tracking, and to Brandon's point, you know, make sure you're prepared.
Keep your
and you're
weapon.
ready. Yes, sir.
No, I mean,
Then-
we'd been at it for a long time. It was heavy. We were tired. It was hot. It was.
But then we ran into another hunters.
Yeah.
They were bugling, they were
Yeah.
calling,
Yeah.
and I text you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Right.
I think we were playing with another.
Well, that's when we started to go down there. We went back, grabbed our packs, decided to chase the cows, and Luis started calling, and he threw out a bugle, and all of a sudden we got a bugle in return, and we thought, here,
We
a
got
bear
some.
abandoned right now, you know, temporarily, and
Yeah, temporarily.
that's
for
that's
sure.
what started our adventure on.
And
then-
that's where the 2 misses and the miss.
No,
with
no,
the-
no. Here it comes. Then Brandon realized that they were
hunters.
humans.
Right.
And he came back, and we
backed out.
Yeah,
we backed out, and we're
But
walking back up.
as we backed out, there was a bugle.
Well, actually, before then, Luis was like, you know what, you guys go with the cow call. It's my duty to go look for this bear, but I don't want to mess up your.
Oh
hunt."
yeah, we were
correct,
discussing that.
And we're sitting there having this discussion, and all of a sudden, you know, the hunter bugles below us because I just backed out. I didn't wave to him or
Right,
anything.
right.
I just left.
Right.
I saw him backed out. Luis looked at me like I was crazy, and I'm like, nah, it's a
Hunter.
dude down there. And so we backed out, and we're just getting a game plan together, and the hunter below us bugles, and then all of a sudden we hear a bugle up above us.
Like a real bugle.
Yeah, so we just stop and look at each other
Juggling
like
and everything.
Yeah.
right?
completely changed our perspective, and we grabbed our gear. And
So we started heading that way, and then we kind of went into the
Flying
the
V.
flying V situation, right? So I get in front of an opening park. I get on my knees in the shadows. Manano goes on the left-hand side. Brandon goes on the right-hand side. I see Brandon on the right-hand side. I see actually antlers through the woods kind of being spooked off. And when I see that, obviously I start cow calling, right? Trying to calm him down. So I signal him and I said, did you see him? And he's like, no, I didn't see him. So we kind of regrouped after that little park, and then we set up again in a flying V in a much better position because we had the wind right. So Manano was on the left-hand side and Brendan was on the right-hand side, and I tried to kind of place myself in the middle and backed up a little bit.
Right.
And then I started calling lost cow mews, and then bugles, and then this bull continued to respond. And then surprise, surprise, he starts coming our way, right? And these guys can tell you, because they were actually both on the front seeing everything happening. I'm not seeing, every once in a while I saw some antlers, but that's all I could see. I just kept on, depending on their reactions and what they were doing, I was kind of...
No more gato vato.
No.
So,
Boys,
You
an
had
elk
him- you had
collar
him
now,
worked
boys.
up.
yeah.
I watched him
And so that
destroy
people
the
understand, when we talk about flying V, basically that's we when we do our setups, we do an inverted V. So you got your collar that's the bottom of the V, and then you've got your two shooters going out. And
two shooters.
Yeah, and so they're out to the side. They just split them in, and they're out to the side, and that gives opportunity for that collar to move around and gives shot opportunities, increase that shot opportunity. So that's what our flying V is. And you guys have gone through that, and you guys had your deal with that bull, and then you guys were wiped, and we get back, they're in their tents, right? And they're asleep, and
let's go.
And so
we actually went back and continued to look for the bear a little more, and we couldn't find any more blood.
Right.
So
you guys ended back here, and you're wiped, and you guys are asleep, and we roll into camp, man, and they're all crashed out, and so it gave us a chance just to shake their tree a little bit and wake them up, and it was like 4, and I went to the tent, and I was it 2?
It was 2.
Oh, it was 2 o'clock.
We'd been in that tent for about 25 minutes.
Yeah, no more than that.
Yeah, there was no sleep going on. All of a sudden you rolled in and started, and we're like,
I was sitting on the mattress when you went to my tent and started filming.
Yeah, we hadn't
it's
even
on
got to
record.
sleep
It's
yet.
on record. But I go over there and said, guys, man, we're not going to kill any elk sitting here, So we came into camp feeling rejuvenated because we had
Chav
back, man.
Yes,
I mean,
100%.
Chav was, man, he was feeling great. And
got the bike fixed.
Yeah, got the bite fixed, and and so we were ready to go. So that afternoon of the 4th, we head out. Actually, I'm sorry, that
that was afternoon.
it was
We
that
went
afternoon.
Yeah.
That's right. It was that afternoon. So so when I say you, Manano, Luis, and myself, we head out one way, and you guys go another, and we all had our game plan for that afternoon. And when we get there, it's 4 o'clock, right? And so the winds were a little erratic, and we were waiting. We were waiting for things to calm down a little bit, and now one thing that one technique that I like to use that I was talking to Luis about is when you get into an area and you're getting ready to head to your location to where you're really wanting to call from, I always like to introduce calls along the way because I don't want it to seem like all of a sudden a cow just showed up in an area.
Sure.
So I like to cow call once we start moving to the area that we really want to be in, and a couple reasons. A lot of times we walk by elk trying to get to elk, right? So I start cow calling, and we start moving, cow calling, and all of a sudden we get a bugle, a faraway bugle, right? Yeah. And so we start heading into it.
And to that point, we also had a conversation that day, and I think it's super important what you just said because I've picked this up from you as well. You use that cow calling also to cover for some of the, sometimes we go through really rough terrain, right? And we're stepping on rocks and breaking branches and stuff like that.
That's right.
And I used that whenever we were approaching your carcass because we were coming down this burn and had all these rocks and we were making
That's the day you shot the bear.
That's the day I shot the bear. Yeah. And I started cow calling as in, I think that lets the animals feel like that noise is associated with the cow call
and
it's normal and they kind of relax. And we were able to put a stalk on that bear and get within 20 yards of it.
In fact, a little later on this day, after we hear the bugle, there was a point where we're moving in on this bugle.
Right.
And Manano turned around and said, Joe.
I gotta say that.
Yeah.
Because we were walking in a really thick area with deadfalls and branches and stuff. I asked Joe, because the bugle was no more than 350 yards away. I mean, it was close.
Yeah, in fact, I bet it was under 200 yards, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but the wind wasn't 100% right.
Yeah,
right.
And what I I was born with a rifle in my hand. I'm a rookie bow hunter, but I'm a hunter. I'm a hunter. Yeah. And my father, I remember this time, all the time, these two words from my father. He said, "Don't move, and don't
make a sound.
Don't make a sound.
Yeah, be silent.
Be silent. I mean, because we are whitetail hunters.
Right.
And that's why it confuses me a lot because the aggressiveness that you hunt,
right,
elk, it's amazing because that animal, they can not see pretty well. They can cut you in a movement, but I brought this into the conversation because I asked him, hey Joe, we're getting close. We have to pass through all of that deadfalls, and they're gonna see us. They're gonna watch us, and I'm gonna say it straight out. He said, screw that. We're going there. We are going there. And sure we did. We went there, and the bugles
making noise,
making a lot of noise, passing through all of that.
I'm sorry to interrupt real quick, but the wind was forcing us to take that route. If you have an opportunity not to make the noise, it's obviously a better opportunity. But you can. The wind was forcing us to take.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's right. And then,
but like he said, you know, a lot of people, especially whitetail hunters, they're like, you know,
it's the law.
They got to move slow and they got to move silently. No, this is elk, man, and elk are noisy animals. In fact, when they see your movement without noise, they associate that with a predator immediately. Okay, so you want to make that noise, and you join that because elk are noisy animals, and so when you join that with cow calls,
very vocal,
and very vocal. So that's the last thing. Move aggressively, get to where you need to be, make the noise. Cover, you know, and sometimes you have to be careful. Like if I introduce a cow call back here, that doesn't mean I have to cow call the whole time I'm making noise. When they have heard that, they already associate the next following noise with elk. Then when you're in position and ready, then you can reintroduce because now it's not the first time they've heard that cow call. Right. And it lets you now set up. Because now when I call, you guys are in position in my flying V up ahead of me. So even if they peg me, in that, it's all good because if they get in an area that's open and they can see, it's usually about 80 yards out, 80 to 100 yards that they want to see that cow if it's an open area. That's why I like to hunt thick because now I've screened them. I don't give them that opportunity. If they want to see that cow or that bull, they have to come in to where that short lane is. That's something for people to remember because a lot of times we kill ourselves because we want to see the elk coming into us, so we set up where we can see far. Well, if we set up where we can see far, then that elk can see far, and they expect to see another elk. Okay? So as we're going and doing that, I have you guys set up in the V. Now I call. So if you guys are 50 yards ahead of me and that bull comes in and locks up at 80 yards, it's a 30-yard shot for you. Right? Yeah, how far was the shot that you got, Manano?
29 yards.
There you go, right there. That's the example that I'm keeping. Because that bull was circling my location to scent check at that 80-yard mark. Okay?
But I was set up in a position that I hadn't, just too many branches.
Right.
And I remember your words and get in a position to have a shot opportunity.
Right. Shooting lanes.
Yeah, and I said, okay, I gotta go for it, and I moved it.
Right.
Towards the animal.
Right.
Breaking my own rules.
No, there you go, man.
And I moved it.
Right.
And I moved like 20 to 25 yards, and I got into a little open spot, and I had a little pine where I was partially covered.
Right.
But I had, clear shot.
Yeah. Good shooting lanes.
Yeah. And there is a point where I started to see the antlers moving, and I saw the spike, and I saw my bull, kind of playing around and
locking.
Yeah. And he was bugling and cow calling, and the spike, he was I don't know, mewing.
And I call that a bow call or a bull mew.
Yeah. It sounds pretty similar to
that. Look, a bull and a cow can both do the exact same vocalization.
I had not seen that bull. I swear forgot it was a cow.
Except for the bugle.
No, a cow can bugle.
Can bugle as well.
Yes, they can.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
See,
I didn't know that. Well, and all of a sudden he started to juggling, glunking with a ground tooth.
Yes.
And my bull was like, "Oh my God, what is happening there?" And he started to come towards me. Oh my God, that was the killing.
This week that's been money.
Killing sound.
Yeah. I call that the bull bongos.
Okay, and he kept coming
good,
and coming. And I was, I had a short opportunity at 4 yards, and I let it pass. And then when they were like 20, 30 yards, I was in full draw. The spike, I had an opportunity, I let it pass. But my bull, he took a couple of steps, and he stopped. And I was praying. At that time, I was praying because I was like...
He stopped without a shot opportunity.
Without a shot, of course. And you bugle again. And I was praying, "Oh God, please give me this opportunity, please, God." And you bugle. And he stepped, and he took like 2 or 3 steps, and I let it fly. And I remember the knock right on the shoulder, right on the pump station.
Baby, yeah.
Yeah, right on the pump station.
My man kills his first bull.
Luis brought a good point because I thought that it was not a perfectly broadside.
Right.
It was
slightly quartering.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was slightly quartering towards.
Right.
But it wasn't.
Right.
I shot it. I mean, a little bit far away right in the pump, because I knew it was
because of the angle.
Yeah. But it was more. I mean.
Right. So that's critical, and I want people to understand that. You know, you had the animal quartering to you a little bit. I thought it was. So what you did was you brought that shot a little forward. To get like Luis said, it's about angles, right?
It was a couple of inches.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And what I want everybody out there to understand too, an arrow is rigid, but it's very flexible, right? So when we shoot it, when it hits something hard, it can actually bend, right? So we're not getting
deflect off a rib or
deflect. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. That's why it's so important to really play the angle and really look at that animal's position, right? So important with bows. Guns, it's going to mushroom and it kills with shock, right? The arrow needs to pass through, right?
Manano hits that bull, and that bull takes off. And he goes about 25, 30 yards, and you can just hear the death thrash. And he goes down, and the branches crashing and everything like that. But it wasn't done.
Yeah, I heard him also huffing and puffing like
struggling to.
Right. Now here's at this point is something else, and this was a learning moment for Luis, and I want it to be a learning moment for everybody else out there, because Luis is still on his side in our flying V. And he has a
and they ran towards my side.
Right. And there's a spike bull over there, right?
Yeah.
And so I cow call to stop that bull to try to bring him by Luis. Well, okay. So guys, understand something. Luis also at that point cow calls.
Yes.
To stop this and try to bring the bull, which is and unbeknownst to him, and this we had a conversation about, and I want everybody to learn about this, is a huge mistake.
Yes.
When you are set up and you are the shooters, your job is to shoot. That's it, not to call. The only time you use the call, and I'll explain why, the only time you use the call is to stop an animal if he's in a shooting position.
Right before taking the shot. Yes,
right.
Sir.
So when he boogers.
Yeah.
Right, if you draw any boogers.
No, that's still my job.
Sure, the call.
Right? Because what happens is, as soon as a caller calls, what has happened is when I'm back there as a cow elk and I call, I establish that distance from the bull.
Right.
So if that bull is going to stay 80 yards out, again, he's only 30 yards from Luis, right? As soon as Luis makes a cow call, he has reestablished that position.
Right. His attention is now closer where I'm at
and
instead of where you're at.
Exactly. And so now, instead of coming past him to me to get the shot, now that bull is going to stay circling out there, and he never came in another foot.
Nope.
No,
he stayed, he went circling around, right around 40 yards, 45 yards.
Exactly.
But obviously behind brushes.
And part of it was, too, is had he if he was solo and threw the calls behind him, then he can still establish that that call is back there. Right. But he cow called directly at that animal, so that established that position. So there's a lesson for everybody to learn. If you are the shooter, your job's to shoot. And so
Joe, what would you say for guys that are do it themselves and don't have a caller for them, right?
That flexible tube
for sure,
and
get it behind you.
You want to throw those calls behind you because you're able to tuck that, hang that tube around, tuck it underneath, your armpit, and your back is going to hide some of that sound. It's going to deflect back
and
off of
to attest to that, the day of when I shot the bull, I even asked Manano, "Is that another bull?" And he's like, "No, that's also Joe." And because Joe is capable of actually making that sound travel in different directions, just as you explained it. And it makes it had me fooled. Let's put it that way. So it is very effective.
Yeah. So, bull down.
Oh my God, I was so happy. I am so happy.
Last year, Manano killed a cow last year.
64-yard shot.
Yeah, so Manano's 100% in elk hunting.
In elk hunting.
Yeah, he's 100% in elk hunting. 2 years in a row. Last year made a heck of a long shot. This year he made a 28-yard shot. And so we're celebrating on the evening of the 4th, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we come to the 5th. And all I can tell you guys is the 5th was epic. It was unbelievable. So we had our plan again. 2 groups headed out, and we were in position.
I was a cameraman.
That's right.
Designated cameraman, and I
he
told
did a
him,
fantastic job.
"I'll film you. You better shoot straight because I'm gonna film you."
He goes, "The pressure is on."
So you guys that are listening to this, it's gonna, it's not gonna come out real quick. We got a lot of editing to do, but you had better go see our video.
Oh my God.
And I think, I don't know, I'm playing around with the name Perseverance for the name of that video because that's what it's probably mostly been. But because we have Luis Gonzalez on video making his first kill on a bull elk, and it is epic. Manano's we have both hunter and animal in the shot.
In the same
it is incredible video.
Great calling, great patience, great shot placement, and great filming, man. Cinematography.
We get up that morning, and our goal is we want to be up on a ridge. And Gilbert said, "Well, which way are you going?" And my response is, "I'm going where the elk sound off at." So we come over the ridge and we start calling off this ridge, and we get no responses to our calls as we're going. And guys, if you're wondering what calls we're using, I always start out with a cow call without a grunt tube, and then I will do some cow calls through the grunt tube to reach out a little bit, and then I will do what I just call location bugle. And it's basically, a lot of times it's not even 3 tones. I just go to a high pitched tone, and I'm broadcasting. I'm moving my grunt tube like in a 360, like a person yelling for people, man, trying to get it out different directions. And so that's what we started doing. We started working down the ridge,
and real
into
quick
the wind.
on the bugle high pitch. The way you explained it to me once is like, sometimes what happens is that as you increase your pitch on the bugle, that initial part of the bugle is not heard long distances.
Right.
So if you start off right with a high pitch, you're immediately just kind of broadcasting that signal further out.
Yeah, just sending it out.
It's easier just to start at a high pitch and broadcast it.
And another important thing is guys, don't make your show too long. In other words, there's guys out there they'll scream a bugle, and then they start doing a long old chuckle, and they start doing a whole bunch of cow calls and doing all this stuff, and there's no way you can hear a response. So I like to scream that call out and listen. Or I'll do a couple of cow calls and listen. So, I mean,
it's not time to get in your pack and make a bunch of noise where nobody can hear.
Exactly, man. So we're doing this, and we end up probably, I don't know, maybe a mile from where we initially started, and there's an area where we had scouted that we knew that there was a bunch of bulls in that area, and right now at this time of year, we've been in one other area that we're seeing sign, but I don't think there's as many bulls in the area, so the competition is thick. But over here, there's a lot of bulls in this area, so bulls are sounding off earlier than other ones. So we went in and we start working on a ridge, and we're working up that ridge, and let out a call, and we get a response, right? The response is way forward of us, so we continue to move in, close the gap on that, and then when we get there, we have responses coming across from a fence where there's private property on the other side. So we hear responses over there, and we wanted to stay off that fence line but try to pull the animals to us. So there's a park down below there, and I get Luis and Manano. They go down to set up down on the bottom there. And at any time, if you guys have anything to add to the story, throw it in.
Perfect.
And
go ahead.
so I get them down there, and I'm staying at the top of the ridge, because what's happening at this time of day is animals are moving up to ridges and moving to different places. So I have them down there, and then I start putting on a show up there on the top. And at first,
the video's amazing. Listening to the show.
At first, it's just basically trying to get some responses and find out the temperature of the animals. Well, while I'm throwing these calls out, all of a sudden, man,
you're signaling us to.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, you're signaling. Well, the cows came down first, right?
No,
Yeah.
I was about to tell this. Because I was the cameraman, a rookie cameraman, and he was trying to, to say, okay, Manano, you go this way, and Luis go that way.
No. I was actually trying to say, guys, move down 10 yards. Move down God. 10 yards. Yeah. I wanted them on the tree line.
But the problem is we couldn't. We had elk.
I get that, but
he was like, and I was like,
yes. Manano's like, me?
Yeah, no.
It was like
Luis?
40 seconds, and he was like, you know what?
Never mind. Just stay there. Never mind. Just stay put, man. I was like, they have absolutely no idea what I'm saying. So I said, no, just stay right there. You're fine. So I decided I'd be the one to move. And so during the calling, we have some cows and a small bull come over the ridge.
Some spikes.
From the same ridge I'm on, from the backside, and come down there. And it was a spike and a small raghorn. Yeah. And they're pushing these cows because they're hearing these bulls in the air, and that bull's like,
I hear the cracking and coming down, because you were also wrecking a little bit in the tree, and I'm like, I turn around, I'm like, Manano, look at that way. So they're coming down this ridge, probably 50, 60 yards from us, and they continue to come down, and they actually get into that clear opening, and they actually stopped, because he tried to calm them down and stop them. They actually stopped in the opening, and I had a very small window through the trees and a couple branches, and spiked just stood up just broadside about 55 yards, and I'm like, man, should I or should I not? And I actually considered taking the shot, but then I also saw that it had some animals behind it, and I'm like, man. And while I'm hesitating, they start moving forward. I'm like, good, that's not my shot. I shouldn't take it. Shouldn't take that shot. So they kept on going, jumped the fence, and went up into the private property. Yeah.
And then also, here comes a big bull with a bunch of cows.
Yeah.
And he's following the cows, and the cows wanted to go over to that area as well.
So I see on the public land side, a bull is chasing a cow. The cow is chasing a little calf.
Right.
Okay, and the bull is kind of pushing the cow and bugling, but all of a sudden, Big Papa Bull comes out from the private property and tells this other bull that I thought it was a big bull, tells him, get out of the way, this is my cow. And that cow jumped the fence in front of that bull. He pushed that cow up into that mountain, and that bull kind of backed up and said, okay, it's all good, and he just kind of went around it and also went up the mountain.
At this point, we figure that I mean, because you can hear them bugling going away.
Yes.
And so I changed my tactics at that point. Instead of trying to call to the bull, I started working the cows and started working like a bull with his own cow up there on the top of the ridge. And then what I started to do was moving away directly opposite away from them and sounding like multiple bulls converging into that area, moving away on that.
While you're doing that, Joe, we're just sitting there kind of admiring because it was a beautiful morning, right? And way down there, 300 yards, you could see of the private property, there was about 40 bulls, not bulls, elk in general, just trotting and moving up quick into that same ridge. It was almost like a congregation.
Right.
And that big bull was kind of calling everybody in, and everybody was kind of moving in that direction and kind of going away. And I'm telling Manano, I was like, man, you know, I feel bad for Joe because he sounds like he must be out of wind after all that calling he's doing out there. I mean, we're sitting there for, I don't know, 40 minutes or something like that.
40 minutes at least.
And Joe is calling and wrecking trees and moving from one direction to the other and just doing all kinds of, pulling all his tricks he's out on his leaves. I'm about to get up and tell Joe, it's like, dude, they're gone. You know, they're not coming in. So, but I'm just sitting there, and then you started doing the lost.
So the lost cow call was huge because it started pulling the cows in. And when you pull the cows in, you pull the bulls in, right? So
absolutely. And the way, as you were doing that, the exact same response will come from those woods. Go ahead and do that.
Joe, demonstrate it for us.
Yeah.
And annoying like that.
Yeah, and the exact same response. I mean, you would do it, then we'll hear it also from the woods. You do it, and you hear it also from the woods. So from the private property line, you see a little calf coming out, looking everywhere, just completely disoriented, like she was wanting to go to where that sound was coming from. And behind her, there was a cow. It's probably the mother of the calf's mama chasing that calf, saying, "Hey, where are you going? Why are you leaving?" You know, and obviously behind that there was a smaller bull that was behind that cow. So I mean, as he brought that calf in, it's like everybody was trying to follow everybody, you know. And then all of a sudden another cow comes out, and then a bigger bull comes back behind, smelling that cow, and I'm like, oh my God, keep doing that. So that little calf is so confused, and she decides to jump the fence, right? So she jumps the fence, cow jumps the fence, and they're just coming our direction. Joe sees this from above and sees that they're coming straight at us, so he starts moving to the right.
I started moving down the ridge. So instead of the animals, because they were getting ready to head to their downwind side.
Right.
So by heading down ridge away from them, it actually turned them and started pulling them across in front of them.
Correct. And so I see them making a slight turn to the right and kind of stopping. That bigger bull who was the last one to actually jump the fence. He hadn't made the decision to jump the fence yet. So at this point, I got the calf and a cow within 20 yards, Manano?
And 18 yards.
But I'm like, the wind is coming from my left to my right. If they get spooked, they're going to run in that direction, and that bull is going to try to follow.
Yeah, you judge it really well. Yeah, I would have taken that shot to the cow. Yeah, honestly.
You would have dropped the cow right there.
Oh, 100%. Big time. I don't know how you did it.
So in a way, you know, eventually, long short, that bull decides to jump the fence, and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to follow that same line, and he's going to be in that same spot where that cow is. I'm going to wait for that bull. So I waited for that bull, and man, that bull stopped in the exact same spot where that cow was. And
you were at full draw.
I was at full draw at that moment, and all I did, as I saw him coming, all I had to do is just make one little step forward, and I let it fly.
Yeah, now that's important though, dude. I mean, a lot of people would not have moved because they go, well, I don't want to spook the animal. But now you don't have an opportunity if you don't.
Right.
You have to create your opportunities. So he moves out, and that bull looks your way, and boom. I mean,
over.
He was done.
Yeah.
Money. 5 years of accumulation. The Venezuelan Mafia scores first bull, epic day.
Tagged out. The Mafia was tagged out. That bull ran 30 yards and actually did a flip.
A front flip.
Yeah.
Like a suplex.
The head went down and the butt went over, man.
Butt over tea kettle.
And muerta. it was dead,
done.
Man. And
DRT. Dead right there.
Good, right?
Yeah, and it was incredible. And what was really so incredible was your reaction.
The moment.
Because the same amount of emotion to your remorse that I got to see when you wounded a bull was the same amount of gratitude and jubilation.
Yes, sir.
For making that shot and watching that bull go down. I mean, you were shaking like a leaf. You were crying, and
Manano's capture of all of that was phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
phenomenal.
Wait till you see this, everybody.
Awesome.
Wait till you see this on there.
Phenomenal.
It was very emotional.
Yeah,
I love the shot. I love the bull bugling, jumping the fence, but the shot afterwards, amazing.
So that's the morning of the 4th, man.
Yes.
And so now, when we get back, we've been doing an animal all day, and so we get back to camp, and it's a later part of the day.
Super late, yes.
And, we got guys taking care of meat. They're exhausted. We had hiked that bull out quite a ways. Mm-hmm. We had to really, and the 3 of us packed that bull out, and a lot of good teamwork with that.
Yeah, sure.
That was awesome. I actually had to hike and get a bike, and man, we weighted down my bike so much, I think I ruined the suspension on that. But we got it, and we got over here, and then that started out the evening of the next hunt. So,
the morning for us was it was crazy. A lot of activity going on. Guys, when you're hunting public land, you just got to endeavor to persevere. We run into several hunters several times in an area, right?
Yeah, it was a disaster.
But we learned a lot, right? We actually had some bulls talking to us, so we knew there were bulls in the area. Joe's always told me if you can hear them, go to them, right? Yeah. And I know Brendan thought I was absolutely crazy trying to crawl this mountain to go to them because it was not easy. It was hard.
Well, they were far.
Yeah,
and I knew that they were.
They weren't that far.
The reservation.
They weren't that far, and I knew that if we could get to them, I had an opportunity to call.
He said they're far, and he's like, they're not that far.
They're not that far.
I promise you, they were far.
No, they weren't. They were exactly where you guys where we were. Okay,
right.
So they weren't that far.
Well, far is a relative term.
Yeah, far is a relative term. Now, so he got to watch what far really isn't last night.
Well,
right?
and that's absolutely true.
Right.
When we went up that hill, I thought you were absolutely crazy.
Right.
Because those bulls, I knew that.
They're not.
I didn't know exactly where I was, but I knew that there was a fence, and I knew those bulls were on the other side of it by a long way.
Right.
And I didn't think that was happening.
They
I
just
didn't think that was possible.
They cover a lot of
and
ground.
then
they do cover a lot of ground.
Last night you proved me wrong because you pulled.
Oh yeah.
What you're getting ready to tell right now is.
Yeah. Plus, you never know what's between them and us.
Absolutely.
Well, that's they just weren't vocalizing. Right. Yeah. I mean,
when we'd seen that all week, we had bulls come in silent on us several times, right? So I knew that if we could just cut the distance, that we'd have an opportunity. We'll make a long story short, it just didn't work out, right? And we put in a lot of work, right? Getting up there. So, we come back to camp. There's jubilation, much rejoicing, and Luis getting his first bull. Joe decides. He says, "I said, where?" He said, "Where do you want to go?" He goes, "I'm going to come with you guys. I'm going to call, and I'm going to be the cameraman, right?" So I told Brendan. I said, "All right." I said, we got the Mac Daddy coming with us. So, Gilbert gets to leave the bugle tube at home only if we need to put on a show or whatever, right? So I got the Elk Whisperer with me, and we ease out. So we go over to the same area that we started in the morning of.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, dude, this area is lit up with bulls, but most of them were where you guys were, right? Mm-hmm. That sound, further sound.
West.
And we didn't have the wind real good. Joe was very patient about letting the wind switch. And we got to the top where we needed to go, and we sat up there for a long while. We had some bulls responding, but they were a long way off. I'm talking
half mile,
quarter mile, right? And when he fired them up and got them interested, you heard one start glunking. And he goes, oh, we got one kind of fired up. He said, you guys go ahead and take your positions and let's see what happens. They got a lot of ground to cover. Yeah. Well, look, it's getting late, right? And these bulls are really, they're vocal, but they don't sound like they've made a huge move. Now, they are getting closer, right? Every time I hear them, they're getting closer.
But you could hear their aggression escalating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So at about, 7 o'clock, I have a family of mule deer run down on me that I thought it was a bear coming in on me. I mean, it sounded like a herd of buffaloes coming from behind me. And first of all, these bulls have been coming in on a silent all week.
Right, right.
So it could have been a bull. So when I turned, I got a mule deer staring at me in my face at 4 feet. Right? I'm serious. Now, 4 feet, the mule deer's looking at me. So it scared the fire out of me. I scared the fire out of the mule deer. Mule deer take off.
Everybody's scared.
Yeah, everybody's scared. And I happened to look down, and I see a bull walking into a park. So I take my rangefinder, and I can see it. He's going straight for a walla, right? Mm-hmm. So he crow calls. Well, 9 times out of 10 when he crow calls, it's done. Mm-hmm. We all converge, right? I walk up there to him, and I said, Joe, that bull's in the park down there. He goes, really? I said, yeah, that bull's right there in that park. He goes, huh. And he lost cow mews like 3 times. That bull goes nuts. I mean, we know he's coming, right?
Yeah,
he goes, y'all get back to where y'all were. He said, let's just wait right here and see what happens, right?
I was getting ready to walk up, and then Chav just like, hold on, you got the bull to bugle, and then you guys stayed with Joe, and I stayed up.
Yeah, I just stayed right there, and I said, you want me to move down? He goes, no, let's just see what happens. He taps me. He goes, dude, I see him. I said, yeah, he's coming, So he, everything was textbook, man. Just like you want to do. You patient. And we were getting ready to bug out. This bull just decides he wants to play ball, right?
Absolutely.
So Joe puts on not only an unbelievable job of running the camera, but he's also calling, okay? So my job is to shut up. But my first instinct.
That's tough for you, too.
Yeah, it is. Because I love to call, right? I love to talk and I love to call, right? So it was really tough on me, but I knew I got the best caller in New Mexico behind me and running the camera, and I got my hunting buddy Chav right beside me that I've had for the last 2 or 3 years, who's really kind of a rock, man. The guy really can calm you down. So we're sitting there, the bull jumps the fence, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fixing to go down right here, right? So we're standing there, and this bull walks up, and guys, y'all are going to get to see this footage on ElkBros.
Incredible, man.
It's incredible footage. Awesome. This bull walks up and bugles in our face and chuckles. It's a 10-minute siege, right?
Yeah, right.
And
from the point that we can see him.
Yeah, from the point we can see him, it's a 10-minute siege.
Because he disappears after he jumps the fence, because we're up on a hill, up on the ridge, and where he jumps and where he goes is down the ridge where we're not able to see him any longer. So I'm throwing out just a few cow calls here and there, and just trying to let him know, and I throw a little buzz call, trying to let him know that I'm being a little insistent. And next thing I know, I'm starting to see the tips of some horns. Yeah,
and there's a bull across over there in another park who's just wailing away too, right? Yep. And some cows mewing, and I mean it's turning into this showdown, right? This bull's horn starts creeping up, and I've seen a lot of bulls called downhill, done it myself, but I don't know that I've ever called a bull uphill, okay, from a quarter mile to a half mile off, right? So I'm telling you, this is epic, right? I'm now I got to do my job as the shooter, right? And I got to pick the ethical shot. This bull walks up to us within 40 yards, and he's frontal, okay? And he is looking dead at us for 3 to 5 minutes.
Well, at that point, he's 30 yards, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
He was 40 from me.
He's covering distance, too. So he moves up a couple of times, right? Chuckles, bugles, and you're going to get to see it. It's freaking awesome, right? He chuckles, bugles, moves up. Now he's in the killing zone. He's in 30 yards. And people, I've never had a 30-yard shot in a day in my life. I've killed a lot of bulls, but they've all been far, right? So I'm really going, I can't mess this up, right? So I asked Chav, it's real low light condition. And because it's shooting through shadows in a small window, I asked Chav, I said, Chav, how far? I mean, we get fixated on all this. How far, Chav? He's like, he's ticking away at that thing. He's like, man, it says 35. And I know I'm shooting downhill, so it's really 30, right?
Yep.
And so we just wait, you know, and the bull actually looks over at Brendan, and Brendan's got his predator decoy out. He gives it the little ear wiggle, and he looks over there, and he starts to make a turn.
Right.
And when he does, I've had my bow up like this solid the whole time. I go to draw, and he catches me, and he stops. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
he sees something, but he's not quite sure, right?
So the stare-off ensues, right? I'm like, oh my gosh. So again, he turns over and looks, and he decides, all right, if he turns left, he's going to walk up within 20 yards. He sees Brendan give that little thing again, a little ear wiggle with that predator call. The bull turns to the right. And as he turns, I draw, and Joe hammers a 4-second bugle. And the bugle seems like it goes on forever, and you're like, he's doing it to cover my draw. Well, the bullhead actually took a step where now the kill is blocked by a tree. So I moved to the left, center my 30-yard pin where I like it to go, and I touched it off. And I'm going to tell you guys, our podcast that shows shot placement, I put it in the 12 ring of where to put it. And that bull went down within 10 yards of where I shot him, and we watched him fall. And it was epic.
15 seconds.
In 15 seconds in the pump station.
Absolutely done.
It was unbelievable, unbelievable team deal. Brendan actually passed a couple of times because he really couldn't see through the brush where he could make a shot right there. So Joe and his call, and Chav and him being calm with me, they calmed me down after it was over with. It was very emotional. I'm an emotional guy, if y'all don't know that by now. But at the end of the day, I got to hunt with my best friends, you know,
that was awesome.
and share that experience. And then listen, talk about guys to ride the river with. These guys that had two hours of sleep, right, after dealing with what they'd been dealing with, of getting their meat packed up and deboned and all of that. I came back to Elk Camp at 8:30. Luis had been down getting ice and stuff like that, and I said, well, it's a dang good thing you got more ice, because I got a bull down. And they're like, oh my gosh, lots of jubilation and everything else. And I'm going to tell you, these guys ride the river with you. They spent 4 hours up on that mountain packing that bull out.
We got back in camp at 2 o'clock in the morning.
We got back at 2 o'clock in the morning. Luis Gonzalez himself made the second trip to go get the last bag. That's the kind of guy I roll with.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I fell asleep.
Yeah, Manano fell asleep. He was totally out. Brendan and I were wore out. We'd been up that mountain 3 times that day. You know, Joe was wore out. I mean, but we got it done.
The thing about it is, Beto, the thought process is that we know that every one of us will do it for each other.
Yeah. Amen.
So
hallelujah.
It's whoever's time it is to help, we all jump in. It doesn't matter who, because we know that when it's our time to need help, we're gonna have it from all of you anyway.
Right.
So it's the thought process. I mean,
it's gonna be your time.
Right.
We got 2 guys to go still. We got Brendan and Chav, man. So
we'll help you.
4 bulls, 3 days.
3 hunting
4
days.
bulls, 3 hunting days. All of them died within just small yards. It's been
epic,
fantastic.
It's been awesome.
Hunting here in New Mexico. I want to tell you, we've had adversity with running up on hunters, bad luck with vehicles breaking down,
illnesses,
heat wave up here.
My gosh.
I mean, it's been hot. I can remember years
we're
when
long sleeves, but we're not comfortable.
Right. I've been up here years where it snowed 2 inches this time of year. You know, I mean, we're up here high. I mean, this is not like we're down in the 5,000 foot range. I mean, we're up high, and it's in the high 80s in the day.
Yes.
You know, so it's been tough. But these guys are so positive, such positive role models, such positive influences. I mean, That's why we're up here doing it. And I tell everybody, it's what's hard that makes it great. There's no doubt it's hard, and sometimes you just feel like it's not going to go your way, but you just one bugle away. You just one more opportunity away to keep pushing it, you know.
Yep.
So you've got to hear the stories of the days to where we're at this point. We were going to go to our ElkBros mailbox, but we're we're over that 2-hour mark. So we're going to save that. We're actually going to do a podcast here at the end of the hunt as well. Who knows? We might do one if we have another great day like this. We might cover some more information. We had a great opportunity here to do this today because we were out till 2 in the morning, and there was no way we were going to get up and hunt at 4 o'clock this morning.
Right,
so we all slept in, had a good breakfast, decided to do this to share this with you guys.
Some meat to clean up and put away as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of coolers of meat.
Right.
So,
ice down.
Well, guys, welcome to ElkBros Elk Camp 2019. We hope you've enjoyed the stories. I've had a lot of people say they couldn't wait to hear the stories of the adventure. So you're hearing it, and it's not something that you can tell in 5 minutes. Trust me. And if you've gotten anything to know about all of us, we're pretty emotional. We're pretty passionate about what we do. We're just everyday guys, all from different makes of life, different backgrounds, religions, colors, languages, and yet we're all here together as brothers. That's why we're Elk Bros.
Like Rafa said, Elk Bros getting it done and walking the talk.
Absolutely.
Elk Bros walking the talk, man.
It's been amazing. I can't thank all of you out there that are sharing our elk camp with us. For me, Joe, Gilia, our coaches up here at Elk Camp, the Venezuelan Mafia, Brendan the professional cat killer out of Pennsylvania, from all of us. God bless all our grinders out there. God bless everybody that watches us and supports our podcast. We want all our husbands to kiss their wives, wives kiss their husbands. Hug your babies, keep your broad heads sharp and your powder dry, and we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Yeah.